The Gulf Breeze UFO Incident. Chapter 1. Ordinary Life. Ed Walters awoke before sunrise, as he did most mornings. The familiar sounds of Gulf breeze filtered through his bedroom window, waves lapping at the shore, seabirds cawing, palm fronds rustling in the breeze. He cherished this peaceful time before his contracting work began. After showering and dressing, Ed shuffled to the kitchen to start the coffee. His wife Joanne was still asleep, her slow breathing just audible over the gurgling pot. Ed gazed out at the dimly lit backyard while waiting for his brew, taking in the towering live oaks silhouetted against the pre-dawn sky. Gulf Breeze was the only home Ed had ever known. Born at the local hospital in 1950, his roots in this small Florida panhandle town ran deep. His grandfather had been one of the area's first developers in the 1920s, buying up cheap swampy land and turning it into desirable waterfront lots. Ed's father carried on the family business, and upon graduating high school in 1968, Ed went straight to work at his dad's contracting company. After learning the ropes, Ed branched out on his own in the late 70s. He started small, doing handyman jobs and painting houses. Through hard work and honesty, his reputation grew. Before long, customers clamored for his services to build room additions, repair roofs, install siding, anything involving a hammer and nails. Now pushing 40, Ed's routine was set. Joanne stayed home with the kids while he worked steadily from his overflowing project list. Most jobs kept him within the Gulf Breeze area, close to his young family. His was a simple life, filled with long days of physical labor and quiet nights at home. Ed savored his coffee and toast as the rising sun glowed pink and gold on the horizon. The familiar sounds of his family's morning routine filled the house. Soon the busy workday would start, but for this calm moment he was content. Chapter 2. First Sighting. The job site was a mess. The frame upgrade Ed had scheduled for a 2-day project was now bleeding into its second week. Short-staffed and struggling with a backlog of contracting work from recent hurricane damage, he was having trouble keeping customers happy. Ed rubbed his tired eyes and glanced at his watch. 7:30 p.m. He'd sent his crew home hours ago, but stayed late attempting to salvage the project. Joanne would have put dinner in the oven by now, he knew. His grumbling stomach urged him to pack up for the night. After loading his tools and locking up, Ed pointed his dusty work truck toward home. Driving down the quiet streets of Gulf Breeze, he noted how low the nearly full moon hung over the bay. Its pale light glittered on the calm waters. Ed sighed, the stress of the day dissipating in the cool evening air flowing through his open windows. Rounding a corner onto his home street, he leaned back and flipped on the radio, a classic rock station turned down low. Only a few miles from his warm house and hot meal, Ed's mind wandered. Maybe he'd take the family fishing this weekend if the weather held up. Get away from work and clear all their heads. The kids would like that, he thought with a tired smile. Lost in planning their weekend trip, Ed almost didn't notice the strange blue glow reflecting off his steering wheel. He blinked and strained to see what lay ahead. About 100 yards down the dark road, a bright, luminous blue and white oval object slowly rose above the tree line. Ed slammed the brakes, fishtailing onto the sidewalk. Heart pounding, he stared open-mouthed as the large glowing craft soundlessly glided overhead, no more than 100 feet above the ground. Smooth and featureless, except for its dim outer rings, the disc-shaped object was unlike anything Ed had ever seen. After passing slowly over the road, the inexplicable flying machine angled upward and vanished behind the trees in eerie silence. Ed sat, gripping his steering wheel, mind reeling. Had he really seen what he thought, or was exhaustion making him hallucinate? Willing his nerves to settle, Ed carefully pulled back onto the pavement and continued home. But the vivid image of the bright oval object lingered in his mind. He had to know if it was real. Chapter 3: A Gathering Proof. Morning came both too soon and not soon enough. Ed rose feeling unrested, the previous night's events replaying in his mind. Had it been a dream? Some reflection in his windshield? He had to know. Ed sped through his normal routine and morning coffee. Joanne gave him a puzzled look when he quickly kissed her goodbye and rushed out the door barely after sunrise. He didn't want to worry her about what was likely nothing. Arriving at the sighting location, Ed surveyed the empty street bathed in morning light. He walked the roadside, peering into the woods for anything amiss. Crouching, he examined the curb and pavement. No skid marks from his locked brakes remained. Feeling foolish chasing a phantom, Ed was ready to ride off the craft he saw to exhaustion and shadows. But something drew him towards the tree line. Pushing through brush and palmettos, he emerged into a small clearing. Squinting in the sunlight, Ed scanned the open area surrounded by pines and live oaks. Nothing caught his eye until turning east, he noticed a break in the treetops. Heart quickening, Ed imagined the glowing disk slowly rising above that clearing, as he had seen it. He followed his gut and stepped into the open space, gravel and twigs crunching under his boots. Craning his neck upwards, Ed saw only blue sky and clouds. Then a glint of light caught his eye. There, hovering miles above, a distant metallic shimmer, a first oval, then shifting to a classic disc shape as it tipped on its axis. Ed fumbled for his new Polaroid camera, pulsing with adrenaline. He focused on the tiny craft and clicked madly until the object sped away and vanished within seconds. Shaking, Ed stared down at the camera in his hands. The proof was undeveloped inside. Peeling back the film, he watched a blurry but unmistakable image emerge, a glowing saucer shape against the bright backdrop of sky. Ed didn't sleep at all that night, pacing his darkroom developing print after print. He now had evidence of what he refused to doubt. Something amazing, something terrifying, was frequenting the skies above Gulf Breeze. And he aimed to document it. Chapter 4: Is Spreading News. Extra, or read all about it. Local contractor photographs genuine UFO over Gulf Breeze. Piercing shouts rang out as Joey Harrison waved the latest edition of his high school newspaper above his head. The teen had an eye for dramatic headlines, and Ed Walters' unbelievable photos on page 1 were sure to sell out this press run. Joey smiled, imagining the buzz these bizarre sightings would generate around town. Moving his pitch from the school parking lot to the streets, Joey was pleased to see rolls of quarters and dollar bills piling up in his money pouch. And generate buzz they did. In bars and barber shops, hardware stores and dining rooms, skeptics argued with believers about the legitimacy of those grainy sky images. Some claim they were obvious fakes and models on strings or the sun glinting off airplanes. Others defended the down-to-earth contractor, asserting he had no reason to make up such wild tales. Ed was as incredulous as anyone, unable to explain the perplexing events unfolding around him. In the weeks following his first sighting, more glowing orbs and streaking lights appeared almost nightly in the darkening Gulf Breeze skies. Ed rushed to capture the fleeting phenomena on film, purchasing tripod and camera equipment to aid his amateur photography skills. The local media quickly took notice as Ed's sightings and developed prints became common knowledge in the small community. First came a front-page story in the Gulf Breeze Sentinel describing the bizarre encounters. The television news station from nearby Pensacola dispatched a crew to spotlight Ed's claims. Before long, affiliates from CNN to NBC came knocking. Trusting his own eyes and camera, Ed welcomed these outlets to interview him and review his meticulously cataloged evidence. As a private man, the mounting attention felt surreal. But he hoped someone with greater knowledge could validate what he so clearly photographed yet still struggled to accept as reality. When the respected television show Unsolved Mysteries devoted a full segment to Ed's encounters, his tale reached millions nationwide. Requests to purchase Ed's photos poured in, while thousands more came just to scan Gulf Breeze skies. He welcomed fellow sky watchers to gather and discuss the phenomenon, no matter their take on his sightings' legitimacy. A sense of community grew around the shared experience, binding ardent UFO believers and staunch skeptics just the same. Chapter 5: Growing Phenomena. Glowing disks and streaking orbs still frequented the night skies over Gulf Breeze, but strange new events now unfolded around Ed. Encounters he once kept private became public, with the media reporting each odd occurrence. While Ed no longer feared disbelief from sharing his bizarre experiences, the unexplained happenings still left him bewildered and seeking answers. And with more eyewitnesses in town, speculation and theories abounded. One evening, Ed's neighbor accosted him outside, raving about lights hovering over the roof of Ed's house before vanishing. Ed rushed inside to find his startled family confirming the account. Bright beams had streamed through the windows before the craft accelerated out of view. He now knew these crafts focused their activities on his own home for reasons he couldn't fathom. More exotic tracing appeared on Ed's property overnight, like the mysterious circular markings first burned into his yard. Neighbors confirmed seeing glowing objects land nearby when the imprints appeared. Testing revealed abnormal radiation levels along the imprinted grass that slowly dissipated over days. The phenomenon clearly generated physical side effects, though they defied scientific explanation. Daytime offered no reprieve from the strange occurrences as camera crews and UFO enthusiasts now flocked to Ed's home, hoping for their own extraordinary encounters. Ed was drilling on a roof one sunny afternoon when a news chopper circling nearby suddenly hovered close above his yard. He squinted into the sunlight, making out a metallic disc pacing the helicopter in tight circles. Ed's heart jumped as he realized the bizarre craft was intentionally following him in broad daylight with witnesses nearby. Word spread, and soon cars lined Ed's street daily filled with sky watchers. They tracked the real-time events he continued experiencing using radio chatter. Ed allowed the curious visitors and tried answering questions, hoping openness might reveal some explanation. But the phenomena and theories multiplied faster than Ed could process. Late nights reviewing photos and poring over books on paranormal phenomena became Ed's exhausting routine. What did these crafts want from him in Gulf Breeze? Why did they appear, and what were they trying to communicate? The answers hovered frustratingly out of reach, but Ed's resolve to document the occurrences only grew. Chapter 6: Support and Skepticism. As coverage of the extraordinary events in Gulf Breeze reached every corner of the globe, ardent supporters joined skeptics in heated debate. Many defended Ed given his simple lifestyle and desire for privacy before the encounters began. Others called his claims and increasingly sharp photos obvious hoaxes. Leading the believers was the enthusiastic director of the Mutual UFO Network, or MUFON, an organization devoted to serious scientific UFO research. They staked out Ed's home for days on end, tracking and recording every anomalous event. The team declared the incredible frequency of Ed's sightings solid proof of an intelligent phenomenon warranting further study. To validate Ed's claims, MUFON facilitated respected laboratories testing his cameras and photos for signs of tampering. After exhaustive examination, no evidence of hoaxing emerged. Ed's supporters trumpeted these results as confirmation of an extraordinary ongoing close encounter with alien intelligences. Prominent skeptics soon countered that no level of analysis could prove Ed's sightings authentic without an actual craft to study. They deemed the tubular UFOs resembling spaceships in his photos suspiciously aligned with pop culture sci-fi tropes. A creative mind could easily model such images to fool the casual observer. The fiercest criticism came from a national UFO organization whose director dismissed the entire Gulf Breeze case outright. He deemed Ed an attention-seeking hoaxer distracting serious researchers with easily debunked fakery. But Ed quietly maintained he would gain nothing from fabricating such claims. Caught in the crosshairs, Ed stuck to his principles: share all evidence openly and let others draw their own conclusions. He welcomed skeptics to review his meticulous documentation. As accusations mounted, Ed even agreed to take polygraph tests, passing without signs of deception. But the dramatic claims and coverage painted an even larger target on Ed's back. The heated clash between Ed's ardent backers and staunchest critics showed no signs of abating. Despite the tension, Ed hoped elevating discussion might reveal some greater truth. Whether visitor or illusion, the elusive phenomenon commanded his gaze skyward. Chapter 7: Ongoing Investigation. Seeking answers, Ed welcomed further investigation from all quarters. If these sightings constituted contact with an extraterrestrial intelligence, even the strangest crumbs of evidence seemed worth analyzing. Ed led UFO researchers to locations around Gulf Breeze where glowing crafts had frequented or odd markings appeared. Special mapping equipment recorded abnormally high electromagnetic frequencies at these sites, though their source and purpose remained unclear. Soil samples also revealed elevated radiation levels, affirming the intense energy associated with the phenomena. Further interviews with Ed and other witnesses added more pieces to the puzzle. Some described unusual static electrical buildup while observing the UFOs, or the peculiar way time seemed to slow during the brief sightings. And all agreed on the eerie silence surrounding the gliding crafts. Odd physical traces kept manifesting overnight when the aerial performances resumed. In Ed's yard and others around town, observers arrived to find puzzling indentations pressed into the ground. On Ed's fence, an intricate floral design etched itself as if burned by a precise laser. Chemists suggested an acidic compound could produce the unique markings, but why and how remained confounding questions. The most astonishing and controversial evidence came with reports of bizarre alien implants discovered in local abductees. Several claimed encountering humanoid figures who rendered them unconscious, later finding odd foreign objects like metal shards under their skin. Hearing these accounts, Ed admitted only to his deepening unease when outside at night. Meticulously inputting each new data point mapped no clearer picture of the phenomena's true nature and origin. But Ed and the investigators remained fixed on their mission, believing answers were encoded somewhere in the prolific events if only they looked closely enough to decipher them. The elusive truth lingered at the periphery, beckoning their collective gaze skyward once more. Chapter 8: Continuing Mystery. Life in Gulf Breeze had been upended. Yet the bizarre happenings showed no signs of stopping as weeks turned to months. Ongoing UFO sightings became mundane conversations. Residents traded updates on the latest inexplicable aerial display, like reporting weather or traffic conditions. Observing the crafts and lights had even turned recreational, with regular sky-watching parties convening at Ed's house. He often hosted cookouts where people rotated telescope duty, calling out whenever odd lights appeared. These gatherings took on a festive atmosphere, despite the strange circumstances. But Ed felt the toll of sustained unease, his once tranquil life now beyond recognition. His family also felt the intense stress of endless public scrutiny and speculation. When not documenting abnormal events, Ed sank into research, trying to understand and validate his experiences. Sleepless nights obsessing over UFO minutiae became the new norm. Yet even amidst perpetual chaos and questions, Ed's commitment to be fully present never faltered. He remained unfailingly patient and honest with the legions of journalists, skeptics, and ufologists still flocking to Gulf Breeze. They bombarded him with inquiries and accusations, but Ed adhered to his principles. He documented the anomalies without embellishment or omission. The truth, though complex, would surface. When yet another spectacular sighting or baffling new evidence surfaced, the entire investigation momentum rapidly reignited. But the fresh leads always simmered back into familiar circular debates. Each revelation provoked more questions, until Ed could hardly articulate what he knew to be true anymore. Looking within, Ed found his once solid beliefs on life and humanity's place in the cosmos unraveling. But the very ambiguity left him oddly at peace. His fearful need for concrete answers dissolved, replaced by comfort in the infinite possibilities and mysteries that lay beyond one's ken. For now, the ride remained paused at this enigmatic waypoint, Earth gazing up and skies gazing back. Chapter 9 is Seeking Answers. The strange crafts stayed true to their elusive manner, appearing sporadically and without prediction. But Ed now spent less time reacting and more simply observing, allowing the phenomena to carry on as they did. He still aimed his camera skyward whenever the chance appeared, documenting less frantically and more out of habit. Ed found validation that his long-held sightings couldn't be fever dreams or hallucinations when others described seeing the same phenomena. Normalcy now reigned in the abnormal. As inexplicable events plodded on, lapses in public interest grew. The curious onlookers, dogged journalists, and UFO researchers came in smaller waves, no longer stationed full-time tracking the skies and Ed's every move. Without new twists, the once sensational story faded into the background of the cultural psyche. Out of this calmer period rose room for introspection Ed had resisted since the first sighting rocked his world. He took time to process traumatic moments that still lingered, the fear from his chilling first encounter and confusion from the endless unanswered questions. Old memories and wounds resurfaced, in need of reconciliation. Ed rebuilt connections that the chaotic events had strained, like his once strong marriage and relationship with his children. He promised Joanne time focused just on their family, without the distraction of UFO phenomena or clamoring press. His kids also welcomed the return to normalcy, not having to share their home and dad endlessly with strangers and their invasive scrutiny. Reflecting on what truly mattered, Ed saw the intense period had crystallized his personal faith, but flexibility in beliefs. He now gave greater weight to his own experience versus blindly accepting any doctrine. Each person's journey toward existential truth was unique, Ed believed. For him, the mysterious celestial show stirring more questions than answers had provided one little glimpse. While the occurrences remained confounding, Over time, Ed found ways of integrating these extraordinary experiences into his conception of reality. The phenomena became less an obsession and more an intriguing periodic reminder that much lies beyond one's ken. On clear nights, Ed would still gaze upward and ponder the secrets that wait patiently to be revealed when the moment aligns. But he happily welcomed each new sunrise in stride. Chapter 10. Conclusion. Ed sipped his coffee slowly, watching the rising sun cast its glow across another dawn. He no longer raced to document the events from the night past. The morning simply held space for reflection. Nearly 5 years had passed since that fateful first UFO sighting jolted Ed into perpetual wonder, speculation, and doubt. Life in Gulf Breeze had largely settled back down, yet subtle ripples from the bizarre events still lingered. Regular UFO sightings continued sporadically, experienced as personally as ever for the observers, but inspiring less fervor in those unaffected. The true believers remained vigilant at their posts, tracking and discussing each new occurrence online. Mainstream interest in Ed's case peaked and waned, but the core questions endure. Had alien visitors frequented this sleepy beach town? Or was it all an elaborate hoax perpetrated for fame or financial gain? Those believing Ed stood by the simple contractor's character and the abundance of strange evidence collected. But skeptics saw only a sensational story stoked by wishful thinking and deception. The arguments volleyed back and forth with no unified conclusion. In the years since, Ed occasionally granted interviews about his experiences when asked. He spoke candidly of the profound mystery, self-doubt, lessons, and truths buried within the events. But Ed made peace with the likelihood they would never fully be explained, much less believed universally. Anomalous events layered life's landscape, some real and some imagined. The proof lived privately in the eye of the beholder. As the first rosiness of dawn turned to daybreak, Ed's thoughts turned from the skies to the approaching day. It was his granddaughter's birthday, he recalled with a smile. He would stop by later with the present already wrapped and waiting in his truck. Whistling a half-forgotten tune, Ed headed out to start his workday. The extra room addition for a client awaited, and strange lights or not, the job would get done. Ed drove through the familiar streets of Gulf Breeze towards his latest contracting project. Passing the vacant lot where he had first witnessed the mysterious blue glow, Ed glanced reflexively upward. The crisp morning sky revealed only a distant airplane contrail fading slowly as it stretched across the horizon. Ed's attention returned to the road ahead. Construction materials filled the bed of his rumbling pickup, ready to be transformed under his skilled hands into something useful and sturdy. He may not build monuments to stand the test of time, Ed thought, but each modest job served a purpose for those who commissioned it. And that brought its own lasting fulfillment. Arriving at the job site, Ed parked and stepped out, surveying the blank canvas before him. The framing was already complete, awaiting only his skills to bring the bare-bones structure to life. His crews would arrive shortly, and Ed looked forward to collaborating with his team once again. Ed slung his toolkit over his shoulder and climbed the unfinished stairs into what would soon become a cozy home office. He ran his hand along the sanded wall studs, picturing where bookcases and a desk would fit perfectly to take advantage of the view. Focusing on the task at hand, Ed pushed aside intrusive worries about schedules or budgets. Those distractions could wait, his purpose stood clear. This addition would shelter a burgeoning family, provide space for their growth. Each nail Ed drove would transform scattered raw materials into something solid and enduring. The familiar sounds of his crew's arrival drifted up from below. Ed switched on his portable radio, rosined up his hands, and got to work. A lifetime of skill flowed effortlessly as he cut, joined, and fastened each piece snugly into place. As Ed shaped the rooms around him, his vision took form. When dusk's fading light forced them to pack up for the night, tired but satisfied with the progress made, Ed lingered a few moments more. Surveying their headway, he saw the skeleton of something useful emerging. There was poetry, he believed, in building something with one's own hands, making an imperfect mark on the world that might outlast his time upon it. From downstairs echoed his crew's laughter as they packed to leave. The camaraderie of the job site brought Ed nearly as much joy as the work itself. With a contented sigh, he flicked off the radio and headed down to join them. Tomorrow he would arrive again before sunrise, ready to enact his small vision in wood and nails. Before climbing into his truck to return home, Ed gazed up once more at the darkening evening sky. The first pinpricks of starlight gleamed high above, silent and steady. He basked in their tranquility for a long moment. Then Ed winked up at the cosmos and turned his headlights toward home. The mysterious universe could keep its secrets. He had found his place within it. The end.